All right, question number 8. We're going to use the data given for miles per gallon of a random sample of cars with a 3-cylinder, 1-liter engine. We're going to compute the z-score. We're going to determine the interquartile range, determine the quartiles, upper and lower fence, and then answer are there any outliers. So in order to compute the z-score, we need the z-score formula, which is z equals x minus the mean. Now, they tell us a random sample, so since we're dealing with a sample, we want to use the sample mean and the sample standard deviation. So we'll be dividing by S. And in order to compute the mean and standard deviations, we're going to use technology. Now, I've already pre-entered the data into the calculator. So you would turn it on, you would go to Stat, I would hit Enter on Edit, and then I just typed each of these numbers one at a time. Take your time, go back and double check, make sure you didn't make any data entry errors. That's the most common incorrect response. So once I have this entered into L1, I go to Stat again, go over to Calculate, and then tell it one variable statistics, and then tell it to calculate. It gives me my sample mean, and we're going to round that to, I'm going to say 4 decimal places. The fewer times you round, the better. So the z-score we're going to be, or the observation we're going to be getting is 38.6. So it's going to be my x value. So this is going to be 38.6. Subtract the mean. The mean is 38.9, and we could round up to 39. We normally round to 1 decimal place, but I'm going to round to 2 decimal places, one more than what we originally had. So I'm going to say 38.97. 38.97. And then we're going to divide by the standard deviation, which is S. That's given to us by this SX number. I'm also going to round this one to 2 decimal places, so 3.48. Alright, so I'm going to do alpha y equal, enter, put a fraction bar, 38.6 minus 38.97 divided by 3.48. And that gives us a negative 0.106, which I think we'll round it to 2 decimal places, so negative 0.11. Z-score of the individual, that value is 0.11. So this is how many standard deviations you are above or below the mean when you do the z-score. So the z-score was negative 0.11. That data value is 0.11 standard deviations below, since it's negative, the mean. Alright, so the next part wants us to do the quartiles. So again, that's why I wanted to do it with a calculator. If I go back and pull up that stat calculation, on the screen when I arrow down, it automatically gives me Q1, Q2, which is the median, and Q3. So if you were going to find these by hand, you would have to take all of these data values, list them in order from smallest to largest, which I believe they are. And then you would find the middle number. And then once you found the middle, you would use that number to separate the data into 2 halves. And you would find the middle of the first half and then the middle of the second half. And that would give you your quartiles. But the technology has done it for us here. So I'm just going to input those values. So Q1, 36.85. Q2, 38.55. And Q3, 41.05. All right, the interquartile range is going to be the measure from the median to Q1. You're going to subtract those two. So let me write down the rest of these. So we got Q1. Q2. And Q3. All right, the IQR, interquartile range, is Q3 minus Q1. And then the lower fence and upper fence, remember those measurements from the textbook. These are upper bounds and lower bounds to cut off to find out if you have outliers. So you would do Q1 minus 1.5 times this interquartile range measurement, IQR. And then the upper fence, you would do Q3, and you would add 1.5 times IQR. Okay, so I can do all these and just type these numbers in one at a time. I want to also show you that you can recall these values from the calculator and pull them up as needed. So these are the formulas, and we can type them in. But here it wants to find the interquartile range, so it's a few buttons to push, but I'm going to show you how to do it just from here. So you can go to VARs. We're going to go to statistics, number 5. And then if we arrow back to points, you can pull these up once you've computed the statistics. So I can just pull up Q3 and then say minus, and I got to go back there again. VARs, 5 for statistics, arrow back to points, and this time I will want option 7. So Q3 minus Q1, I get 4.2. That would be the same thing if I typed in 4105 minus 36.85. 4.2. And then they want to know, what does that mean? So the interquartile range is the middle 50%. The middle 50% of observations in the data set. All right, so D, we want to do the fences and determine if there's any outliers. Okay, so again, here are the measurements, or here are the computations for the measurements. I'm going to use a calculator again, so I'm going to type in VARs, statistics, go back. I'm going to do 7 for Q1. I'm going to do minus 1.5. And the interquartile range we just got was 4.2. So that's going to be the lower fence, and then I'm going to do VARs, statistics, go back, and this was number 9 to get Q3. Add 1.5 times the interquartile range, which is 4.2. We get this value. So 30.55 and 47.35. Right. So any number lower than 30.55 or greater than 47.35 is going to be an outlier. So if I pull up my data, there's nothing lower than 30.55. My lowest is 32.4. On the upper end, I have one value, 49, so that would be an outlier. And so are there any outliers? 49 is an outlier. Now there's one more thing I want you to see. When you input data into the calculator, you can pull up a stat plot. So if I go to y equal, I can just arrow up to stat plot and hit enter. You can also Let me hit enter and turn it off. You can also just hit second and then the y equal for the stat plot, and it pulls up here. So this is better. If you hit enter, you can turn it on, and then you can tell it what kind of plot you want. So right now I can pick a dot graph, I can pick a line graph, I can pick a histogram. What's highlighted right now is the what we call a box plot, and the dots show you the one with the outlier. This is a normal box plot. It doesn't do an outlier. So let me do the box plot with the outlier. I'm going to hit graph. Right now I don't see anything, so I need to do zoom, and I want to go zoom stat because we're using the stat, and it'll give me the stat window. So here's my stat window. If I hit trace, it shows you the minimum value. Each of these lines represent one of your quartiles. It shows you how spread out your data are. So if I arrow over, it shows me Q1. Arrow over again shows me the median, which is Q2. Arrow over again shows me Q3. And then the last dot shows me the biggest value that is not an outlier. And then this dot separated is the maximum, which is an outlier. So that's a really neat thing you can also do with the calculator.